funny enough, I did get allegations of being boosted by a dev, apparently for having 700 something strength, and them saying that it was not possible. Well, if you have played Swordmaster before, then you probably know the skill Bulwark's Might. So it increases your strength based off your armor, and if my calculations are correct or based on the description of the information server, they did say every 1,000 armor gets you about 35 strength. Well, 3.5% of your armor. This, in fact, is pretty accurate. So if I take away all of my equipments, all of my rings, I'm left with 209 strength. And where this comes from mostly will be from your stats over here, which is 147 plus 2 is 149. And where did I get the remaining 60? Well, that is from professions. If you did max out your foraging to 60, you get an additional 60 strength. So that adds up to 209. Now if I add the Frost Scale helmet, it only gives 37 strength, but if I equip it, it does give me more than that because the armor converts into strength. Now if I equip my whole set, let me just find it, and I equip the Yeti Axe, this scale, my cloak, and what else? Yeti ring, and this ring, and this ring. It goes back to 638. Now it's still not adding up to 700 as you've seen in my previous video. Well, where that remaining 100 comes from actually is from being a vampire. If you haven't known already, vampire has another passive called, where is it? Nocturnal Being, where at nighttime it is increased by 20%. Of course, since I joined the server already daytime, I did not get nerfed by 15%. So apparently it's a mechanic that's not yet working properly, but if you do stay long enough in a server and it turns from night to day, then your stats will be nerfed by 15%. So for now, I'm gonna skip this a bit and come back when it's nighttime, but I will be recording so you see the change. Alright. And there you have it. Just turned nighttime, and as you can see, I now have 766 strength. And earlier, what I wrote down here was the computation for the helmet, which I do think is a bit off. But if we add up all of my items, it should sum up to somewhere close enough. What I do think was throwing me off was the armor to bulwark's might scaling might be more or less than 35 per 1,000 armor. But I don't normally run this setup like this. I do admit the Yeti Axe is simply for clickbait, so it gets over 766 strength. But what I would normally run is probably Rimahal, which is 750. So yes, it is still above 750, 751 technically, but I'm not always going to be running these rings most of the time. I would much rather have Shield God's Ring, 741. So why I chose Shield God's Ring is that Rimihao, while you are charging, does give you hyper armor, and your incoming damage will be reduced. Yeti Ring is actually very nice since while you are using Rimihao's weapon art, this one, you basically can take damage, reduced damage, while your damage scales up higher. So these two rings are a good combination. While 20 strength is good for the video, you could much rather have another ring instead. For example, is Focus Ring if you ever run out of focus. But the good thing about this build and why I'm not running Focus Ring is that I do get a lot of flux built up just from my weapon art. If I show it here. So it does give me 95 right here. And as you can see, Rage Hit does stack up, just like that. There you go. And the good part about this is that why I don't really need that much focus is that currently Flicker Counter, I don't know if this was intended or not, but it does not consume your flux. Hence, you could actually combo with Flicker Counter to Flicker Strike. I don't know if that's the way it's meant to be, but just based on the test results, that is what it's giving me. For example, let's try it here. Never mind. Okay. But yeah, there is another ring that you would much rather use if you wanted to crit using the Rimhal. Forgot the ring's name. I don't have it. Supposedly that ring does give weapon arts boosted crit percent. Now, I do not know how to check how much crit percent it gives Rimhal, but based on OK's video when he made the Limit Breaker Rimhal build, he did rely on that ring to have that kind of crit damage, since normally if you are running a strength set, you will not be having a lot of crit chance. So if you wanted to run a build that relied on a ring for your charge attack like this, then it is possible and it is viable, but if it doesn't crit, then, well, yeah. But it was a very nice build, I have to admit. It is unfortunate that they nerfed Limit Breaker by a lot. Based on my tests, I've been getting around 5% for Limit Breaker, but lifesteal, I mean. But going over for the skills, I did get Whirlwind. This is just an extender for your Hyper Armor, since basically the problem with Swordmasters is they never really had anything to trigger Counterforce. Counterforce gives you additional damage when you are struck during Hyper Armor, and which is the good part about using Rimahal and Whirlwind is that if I demonstrate it here, it's not attacking me. Okay, never mind. They really should add testing dummies or places so that you can test out your things. It is unfortunate. Let's try it out here. Come on. See, this alone only gives me Rage Hit. But if I were to do the charge, you can see that it does give 25% physical damage, as well as the Rage Hit, which is now 4 seconds, giving 20% damage. So it does add up pretty well, and it will be the same if you used Whirlwind, if this would let me use Whirlwind. Yeah. But take it for example here, you are seeing that I'm getting quite the damage still. 770, 749. So it's roughly doing closer to 30, 20, 20, 30 damage. But if I were to use this, you can see that it has been reduced by half of that, which is why it is a pretty sturdy build on top of your 3000 armor. Only problem is Whirlwind can get cancelled due to its long cast, but once you do pop it off, it's pretty decent. Damage wise, I wouldn't really say so, but yeah, there we go. So it does build up flux, at the same time it keeps it so you can just go on and do Flicker Strike after you do Flicker Counter. Yeah. So that is the explanation behind my build, and no, it is not dev boosted. I am not in contact with any devs. If I missed anything, if you have any other questions, you can comment down in the videos I post. I will be posting this across TikTok and YouTube, but I will always be posting the main videos and explanations and the builds on YouTube. I will only be posting some showcases or short clips on TikTok, the same with my YouTube shorts, so please find the dedicated YouTube video for the build to check out the explanations behind it. Flux Wants, you can equip this if you want. I know a lot of people have been asking about the other parts of this, and before I leave, I might as well give an explanation behind why I did put 1 Samurai, and why can't I just go 50 Warrior? Well, you can go 50 Warrior. Personally, the Tarnished Kubikiri is just a preference for myself, but if you are running Tarnished Kubikiri, then you can change some things to more multi-hit things. You can change Whirlwind with Thrusting Strike, and you can even change, for example, we will not be needing Shield Training, just because I'll just show you, it's easier to show you. If you do switch from this setup, it does not work. The combination between shield and katana does not work. So whenever I do use this, I just equip my warrior sash. There we go. So yes, if you are switching over to Tarnished, it does have quite less strength, but you will still be having about 705 strength, which I don't really see as an issue. The reason why it dropped about 50 strength or 40 strength is that, one, you did lose armor, and armor equates to strength, and two, this in general just gives less strength. 33 strength in comparison to, where's that? There we go. 45 strength on top of 200 something armor. So, but why I did use katanas, I know some of you might have already seen Swordmaster builds using katanas, is that this katana does proc 6% hemorrhage buildup on hit. And why this is good with Swordmaster is if we take away unnecessary things, for example, we can change this to counter, greater counter, change Whirlwind to Thrusting Strike if you like. Bloodthirst is optional. Honestly, the heal is not really that good, being completely honest. But I will show you still, for example. So there we go. And move this here, Sanguine Burst. So let's put on the field Sanguine Burst. So you see it does 6, so it does heal me by 3. It is pretty okay, I guess. So sometimes the Tarnished Cure also does proc bleed on hit. It's not always going to be an occurrence, but take a look here. And that's a very nice bug, field not casting. Let's see. Nothing goes right when I'm trying to record a video. Let's go to... I don't have Lakeshire. Teleport scroll. Lovely. There should be another guard up top there. There we go. So, take out field. Come on. Proc bleed. Nothing works. Nothing works in this game. We're going to the pig. So it is pretty nice that nighttime does last quite a while, although that is one thing that I really dislike about vampires is that they are nerfed during daytime, which I'm not really a big fan of since I'm not only going to be playing when it's nighttime in game. So put field. Counter right there. See, it did proc bleed just from that, and yes, I will be healing off of that, and never mind that. Yeah. It's not bad, not really the best for anything sustainable, since even if you stack the two bleeds together, it's only going to give you about 5 health to 10 health. The other good thing about Tarnished Kubikiri is that because of the hemorrhage buildup, technically any multi-hit skills will continue to build that up. So that's the reason I went for counter. As you notice, there is a lot of hits when you're doing counter. And on top of that, Hindsight Slash is actually not necessary. It is a good damage skill, I must admit, but I would just much rather have something else. For example, I would even much rather have Flux Waltz than Hindsight Slash, since it is a pretty decent range skill. Damage-wise, it's nothing great, but the range on it is pretty far, as you can see. And if I recall, it does build up a little bit of flux as well. If we're gonna wait over here, let's do bleed. 5 over there. 93 right there. And you see, that did proc another bleed, and that's because of the katana itself. So basically, any skill you do while you're using Tarnished can affect or can bleed them, as well as build up hemorrhage. And as you notice, because I waited in the server until daytime, my stats are nerfed to this. But if I show you, I do this real quick, 30 seconds. And while that's going on, I'm going to explain. If you notice, Flicker Counter can hit up to, I think, 4 times if you are maxed out on Flux. And additional 5 strikes with Flicker Strike. Every 20 Flux gives you another hit. So that'll be roughly 9 hits over there. And if you add Counter and other things, well, basically you can proc the hemorrhage really fast. And if I reset, as you can see, this is my daytime this is my daytime stats. So it isn't too bad, even though it's daytime as a vampire. It's just much preferred to be at night, but that is annoying. So let's go over here, do field, counter. Where did my waltz go? Lovely, love the game. Counter like that, and it gets cancelled. Because lovely. Anyways, you can see that it didn't really do much damage there. That's because I didn't use Mortal Strike. And a lot of people have been kind of not really realizing just how much Mortal Strike actually gives. I'm dead. So yes, I may be showing really nice clips of it, but yes, you can use the build pretty well, but it's not something that's going to be game breaking. At the end of the day, if you're not using the build properly, then either way, that isn't really going to benefit you much. The builds can only get you so far, but if you don't play the class well, then it doesn't really matter. Lovely. See, yeah. Go. Brock's bleed. Brock's that. And this is one of the issues that many Swordmasters will be facing, is that you do run out of focus quite fast. And which is why I do like the Rimhowl combo, just because I never really have to worry about my focus when I'm using Rimhowl. But most of the time, a lot of Swordmasters struggle with is building the flux at the same time of, you know, using the skills and whatnots. But yeah, that's mostly it covering the katana. And yes, you can even use dual wield if you'd like. It's nothing really special. The only difference is that I used Rimhowl. To be honest, this is a completely standard build. It's just nearly pure Swordmaster. There's nothing special with it. But why I do like 40 Warrior with this is that you get Thrusting Strike, which is kind of a lot of hits that can help you proc the katana. But for example, if you are running this we call it setup katana, you would much rather have Focus Ring instead of Shield God Ring. You're not really going to have a lot of hyper armor anyway, and Iskall Ring, better than 20 strength, since it does help you proc the freeze, the frostbite, if they call. Yeah, let me show you. Lovely. Oop, see? Oop. So it still does have quite a lot of bleeds. See? So you'll be healing off of that. You do that. Savage. Didn't work. Do that. Yeah. So it's not really a crazy build. You still gotta get lucky with a lot of things, like the crits, whatnot. Like that, timing it right. This is my first Swordmaster. Not really a fan of the class. Do that. That's a lot of hits right there. Get cancelled. Of course, when you do counter, they never really attack you. See? Lovely. Boop, 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 boop. Into boop, 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 boop. So you can do that kind of combo right there, which will be doing a lot of hits, which can proc bleed and can proc hemorrhage. Yeah, so that is why I chose the Tarnished Kubikiri. If you're going with Tarnished Kubikiri, you might as well use Focus Ring and scale over that other Strength Ring. But yeah, that is the damage during daytime, so that is not really the full potential of it, but more or less you will be seeing around 300 on Flicker Strike crits, and 150 or so without critting. Multiply that by 9 or 10 hits, then you're roughly doing around 1,500 or more damage with this build. But yeah, thank you for thinking that I was boosted, wholly boosted, dev boosted. Breaking the news to you, no, I'm not boosted. Never was, never will be.